the cross is at the heart of all Christian worship, and all Christian worship should centre on the cross. It's a place of love. It's a place of worship. It's a place of wonder. And I wanted to ask questions about that, because it seemed to me that there was this kind of gap. We think that worship's what we're about as Christians, but if we look at big theologies, big ideas, very often actually they're completely void of any idea of worship. I wanted to look at that and say, sin, the cross, salvation. Why so often in big theologies is there no worship there? I guess I'm from a generation who have grown up with the idea that worship is at the heart of our Christian living. But when we're taught stuff, worship's an add-on. It's a frippery. It's, that's okay, we're over with the worship, now let's do the serious stuff. And I don't think that's true. I think that's really, really bad theology. So I wanted to look at that, and I wanted to say, is it bad theology? Or actually, is the experience of putting worship at the heart very good theology? I think it is very good theology. I think it's what the Bible's all about. And so I wanted to take time with that and have a look at it. Period of time I was very fortunate. I took a year out from end of my second curacy and before coming to St Catherine's, and I had the time to work on these things. Where did it come from? Just all that time working on these things and working them through. I thought I was writing a book on pastoral care and worship. That's what I set out to do, and that's not what I did. What I ended up doing was giving myself a theology of the cross, and that was a very different thing altogether. It was a surprise. I remember driving. I'd been to see Mike Pilavachi from Soul Survivor, and I was talking with him about some of the ideas that were here, and I'd got Romans 1 being the problem of the world, people not worshipping God, and I'd got Romans 12 being the result that now we can worship God. And it suddenly struck me as I was driving home. I think I pulled off the road. I mean, it was just one of those moments. I actually pulled off the road because I went, I've got a stage missing. I've got the sin thing and I've got the salvation thing, but actually I'm kind of missing Jesus from the middle of that. It's the cross, and the cross is Romans 3. And in Romans 3, the cross is described in terms of worship, in terms of Passover festival, in terms of the Day of Atonement festival. These are worship terms. And it suddenly hit me that the Bible describes the cross in terms of worship from point one to the end. And I was suddenly overwhelmed by this. And that's where the core of the book came from. Well, a lot of it's based on Matthew's Gospel, which is, I guess, where a lot of my studies were based, because in Matthew's Gospel there are 10 stories about worship using his favourite worship word, proskuneo. He uses another word in one place in Matthew 15, but most of the times he uses this word, and translations don't always use it that way, and I wanted to ask why not, and I'm not going to go into that now. Read the book, I just wanted to look at those 10 stories and ask questions about them, because 10 stories are a theme. And none of the commentaries pick that up. And but I freely say this. All theologians read the scriptures with spectacles on. None of us come to this without presuppositions, without preconditions. There is no such thing as abstract theology, and anyone who claims there is either mistaken or lying. I don't come to this without preconditions. I think worship's important. So there you go, cards on the table. That's how I come to this, and that's why I've written the book I've written, because I think worship's important. And so I find stories about worship and I want to say, well, are these important? Answer, I think so. And that's how I find some of the material, and that's where I'm coming from. But then I want people to judge what I've written by the scriptures. Have I been unfaithful to the scriptures? Am I twisting the scriptures? Because if I am, then they must disregard what I'm saying. But if I'm being faithful to the scriptures, then read what I say and judge it in that light. Everyone who writes about the Bible comes from a perspective. The question is it a valid one? Yeah, well, I was grateful that some friends helped out. Paul Thompson, who at the time was working here in this diocese, one of those friends, Phil Lawson Johnson, who's a worship leader of many years standing and has written some amazing songs. One we sing here a lot, Jesus the Name We Honour. Neil Smith, who's a doctor friend of mine, and Rowan Williams, Archbishop of Canterbury, put a little section in as well, which I was very grateful for, and that was lovely. Other people have contributed. I mean, it was nice that Mike Pilavachi got interested, because who am I? No one. And to get a book published, you actually do need to have someone who goes to a publisher and says, we'll support this. And Mike was great going to Kingsway and saying, we'll support this, put our name on it, we'll do a foreword. He got Matt Redmond to do a foreword as well, and Tim Hughes did a bit of a blurb on the cover, along with other friends like Alistair McGrath, and again Rowan put something there, so that was very kind. So it's nice when people read it and like it. I'm sure that enough people have read it and not liked it, but I didn't get them to put a blurb on the back. So there you go. If you read it and don't like it, I'm not getting you to put a blurb on the back. I'm really sorry. No. Oh, my favourite thing about it. Gosh. My favourite thing about it was I had an amazing year writing it. I had an amazing year writing it. Being able to spend a year thinking about issues and spending time with God, working stuff through. That really creative process. I loved writing. I loved thinking. I loved that moment when I had to pull the car over because an idea had occurred to me that had never occurred to me before. But there were lots of little moments like that. I loved it. Was a privilege to have the time to do it. Since then I've continued to work on it. There are things now that I say which are like it but a bit different. I've continued to develop it. I don't disagree with anything there, but I've kind of pushed it a bit further than it's there now. And it's been a joy. It's opened doors for me. I've been able to speak in places that I wouldn't have been able to speak to before. It's pushed my thinking and my understanding of Jesus and my relationship with him. And because of that, and because I'm a teacher and work in a church, I guess I've been able to help other people in their life with Jesus as well. So it's not just abstract, ideas about God. Well, I don't think it is abstract ideas about God, but ideas about God change the way we live with God and change our relationship to him. And it's certainly done that for me. And because I know it's done that for me, I hope that it's helped other people as well.